Okay, so if we can go live when we're ready. And
Chair, just before you go live, I'm losing it now and again.
Okay, thanks for letting us know.
No.
Right, we're now
disappear altogether.
we're now live, so we'll make a start. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the March meeting of the Strategy and Resources Committee. Particular welcome to officers, members, and any members of the public that are watching our proceedings this afternoon. Before we start the meeting, I'm obliged to inform you that the meeting is being live streamed and recorded. Members of the public can see and hear the meeting as it is happening. Members are reminded to mute their microphones unless asked to speak. This will help prevent any background noise from interfering with the meeting. Members are asked to refrain from speaking across each other. If you wish to ask a question or make a comment, please indicate this via the chat or hand functions on Teams. Officers will be invited individually to deliver their papers. At the end of each paper, I will refer to the chat function to address any comments or questions. When discussions on a paper are completed, I'll ask for a proposer and a seconder. Members are asked to propose and second via the chat function, as per usual. For decision items, once the recommendations have been proposed and seconded, the Executive Support Officer will conduct a roll call to register members' votes for, against, or abstain. I will then confirm the result of the vote. For information items, once the recommendations have been proposed and seconded, votes will be taken on an exception basis. I will ask if there are any members who are against or wish to abstain. These will be noted by the Executive Support Officer and the result of the vote will be confirmed. I will then move to the next paper and invite the relevant officer to speak. So that completes the introductory statement. So we'll now move to the agenda. And the first item is to ask Lynn to conduct the roll call of those present. So over to you, please, Lynn.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, so Councillor Carter.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Councillor Hartin.
Yes, present.
Thank you. Councillor Lavery.
Yes, present.
Thank you. Councillor Mellings. Councillor Pardy.
Yes. Present.
Thank you. Councillor Roberts.
Present.
Okay, and Councillor Wynne has notified us that he will be late, so we're quorate, Chair, and we can continue.
Lovely. Thanks very much indeed, Lynn. So we'll move on to item 2, which is the item on disclosable pecuniary interest. Members are reminded that they must not participate in the discussion of or voting on any matter in which they have a disclosable pecuniary interest and should leave the meeting prior to the commencement of the debate. Do any members have any declarations of interests that they need to make at this point in time? I'm getting no feedback from anyone, so I'm assuming that no one has any interest to declare. Thank you very much. So we'll move on then to item 3, which is public questions. As far as I'm aware, there are none.
No public questions, Chair.
Lovely. Thanks for confirming that, Lynn. Item 4 are the minutes of our last meeting from the 28th of January. Do members agree that the minutes of the Strategy and Resources Committee meeting held on the 28th of January be agreed and signed as a correct record? From the chair, I'm happy to propose if somebody would like to second them, please. Seconded by Eric. Thank you very much. So as it's a decision item, I'll ask the Executive Support Officer to conduct a roll call vote. So back to you, Lynn. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So if members could just indicate for, against or abstain as I call your name. So Councillor Carter, you seconded. For. Councillor Hartin.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Lavery.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Mellings proposed.
Yeah.
Councillor Pardy.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Roberts.
For.
Thank you. And Councillor Wynne isn't here yet. So that's agreed, Chair, and carried.
Lovely. Great. Thank you very much, Lynn. Thanks, members. So then we'll move on to the first substantive item for today, item 5, and that's the committee work plan for 21-22. And that's over to Lynn to present. Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you, Chair. So this is a report that comes annually to the committee to review last year's work plan for 2020-21 and to agree the work plan for 2021-22. Officers have reviewed last year's work plan, and all the activities that were listed on that plan have been carried out or are on the agenda for this meeting. So there's nothing outstanding. And then attached at the appendix to the report is the proposed plan for 2021-22. This sets out the standing items that come to the committee regularly and where they go to after the committee as well, if they need to go to the authority. The committee is asked to provide any comments or suggestions with regard to the work plan and to approve the contents of it. Happy to take any questions, Chair.
Lovely. Thanks so much indeed for that, Lynn. Any questions or comments from members? I've got indication from Nigel that he's moving the two recommendations. Before I ask for a seconder, does anybody have any questions or comments? Obviously, from June, there'll be a new committee, and it may be that the new committee will might want to have a light touch look at it to see whether there are any other issues that it might wish to add during the course of the year. Though I appreciate this is obviously a sort of a standard template that has served us well in recent years, but obviously the new committee might have additional requirements that need to be fed in. Keith is seconding it, so unless there are any comments, then I'll ask Lynn to conduct a roll call vote. So Lynn, if you'd like to conduct the roll call vote, please.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Carter?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Hartin proposed. Councillor Lavery?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Mellings?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Pardee?
For.
Thank you. And Councillor Roberts, apologies, seconded. So that's a 4. So that's agreed, Chair.
Lovely. Thanks so much indeed, Lynn. Thanks, members. So we'll then move on to item 6, which is the committee terms of reference. And this is for information. And I'll ask Si to take us through this one. So over to you, Si.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think in terms of committee terms of reference, we're now at a position where we've had meetings with Anthea Lowe from Telford and Wrekin Council, and we are awaiting feedback on the work involved to look at the committee terms of reference and the delegations from their Chair. That meeting is scheduled for last week of March.
Lovely. Thanks very much indeed for the update, and that's in addition, obviously, to the comments that are given on the agenda. Does anybody have any questions or comments on that? As I say, it's just for noting the position, and obviously a further update and with some recommendations will come forward following the discussions in March. So, practically speaking, it'll be a post-April as such. So from the chair, if there are no questions or comments, I'll move that we note the update. If somebody would like to second that, I'm looking through to chat to see. Can't say Eric. That's seconded by Eric. So I'm assuming that members are happy to approve that. I'll allow a few seconds just to see if anybody wishes to state otherwise. No one has done so, so that is noted. Thanks again, Si, and thanks, members. So we'll move on then to item 7, which is the review of member role descriptions, and that one's back to Lynn. So over to you, Lynn. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So again, this is a report that comes annually to the committee. Under your terms of reference, you are required to review your role descriptions for your chair and vice chair. These are attached to the appendix to the report. Officers have carried out a review of those and do not propose any amendments at this time. But the committee does have the power or the delegation to review those descriptions and make any amendments that it considers necessary. So you're asked to review them and agree any changes that are required. Happy to take any questions, Chair.
Lovely. Thanks very much indeed, Lynn. Are there any questions from members? I wonder whether perhaps I should have picked this up sooner. I'm conscious that in the first bullet point it says that the role is to work closely with the Chief Fire Officer and the Chair of the Fire Authority, which is absolutely right. But I'm conscious that over the last 12 months in particular, outside of meetings, I've had a number of discussions and meetings with other senior officers. So Joanne, for example, on financial issues, and Cy Hardiman on the performance issues. So there is obviously a dialogue with senior officers, and I just wonder whether that bullet point ought to be expanded to make reference to the Chief Fire Officer, other senior officers and the Chair, just so that it reflects that those conversations and discussions that inevitably take place in between committees and are part of the efficient running of the committee and so on, really. So whether that's a possibility, but I'll allow Rod to comment before we move on. So over to you, Rod.
Thanks, Chair. At the risk of sounding precious, which I'm trying not to, the clarity that's afforded by that first bullet point is useful, in so much as the direct relationship should be with the Chief Fire Officer. It makes sense sometimes for me to delegate it, and quite often at the moment to delegate it to other officers. But there's some clarity or function if it's left as the Chief Fire Officer, and then we practically be flexible around it.
Yeah, no,
I'm very happy with the way you're working, though, Chair. So
no, I didn't take it any other way as such, really. But no, that's absolutely right in terms of the structure. And I think as long as everybody's clear that that's what it does mean as well, then that's fine. So thank you. That's helpful clarification. So I'm happy to leave it as it is on the basis of that, so that obviously that process can still take place. So Kev Pardee, I had your hand up next, so I'll come over to you, Kev.
Yeah, I took it down. You basically covered it. When I read that, what I read is that when you're talking to other officers, that they're actually representative of the chief anyway. So that's how I see it.
That's fine. Lovely. Thank you. So any other questions or comments? Let me just, I think I've missed the proposer somewhere. I've got a seconder, but I'm just, so I must have a proposer somewhere. Sorry, just bear with me a moment. Right. Yes, I've got Nigel proposing and Keith seconding. So sorry about the delay there. I couldn't find a proposal amongst all the messages. So having been moved and seconded, I'll pass over to Lynn to conduct a roll call vote on the recommendation to note and agree the role descriptions. So over to you, Lynn.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Carter.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Harton proposed. Councillor Lavery.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Mellings.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Pardee.
4.
Thank you. And Councillor Roberts seconded. So that's agreed, Chair.
Lovely. Thanks very much, Lynn. Thanks, members, for that. So then we'll now move on to item 8, which is the outline report for the introduction of new corporate performance indicators. And just to say, for the benefit of the committee, obviously from an authority perspective, the consideration of the corporate performance indicators falls in 2 places. This committee will agree what the indicators are and the targets that are comprised within them. And then the ongoing monitoring and quarterly reports go to standards and audit. So obviously we have the important role of actually setting those. And as you'll see from the report, and as Si will take us through in a moment, the framework is slightly different going forward, having come to the end of our previous 4-year framework. So we'll have an opportunity to look at those in a bit more detail, and hopefully to approve those, so that they will then be in place for standards and audit and the wider organisation to work on and develop as we go through. In introducing Simon to take us through the report, can I thank him and the team for the work they've put into this. Although it's a relatively short report, there is an awful lot of information that lies behind it, and I'm conscious there's been a significant effort that's gone into pulling it to this position. So thank you to everyone involved for all that work. So without further ado, over to you, Si, to take us through the paper.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you. So, as the Chair's quite rightly pointed out, the purpose of the report is to provide information and recommendations for consideration of the committee in relation to work currently being undertaken by the service to introduce a new set of corporate performance indicators, and the recommendations are within. So the recommendations from that we're looking to take forward today are for the committee to note and report, acknowledge the work undertaken to determine the new corporate performance indicators for the service, and approve the proposed corporate performance indicators for 2021-2022, inclusive of set tolerances, which I'll explain as we go through the report. So really briefly, a bit of background. In 2015, the Fire Authority agreed its strategic objectives and a number of service delivery targets as part of a 5-year plan. The majority of the 5-year service delivery targets were set based on the aim of improving performance 5% year on year, therefore 25% over the 5-year period. Just for awareness as well, there was a 12-month extension that was to align the community risk management programme with our colleagues in Hereford and Worcester, and the performance targets were also extended by 12 months to accompany that CRMP extension. Previously, we've looked at 7 corporate performance indicators, and they're listed within the report, but just for clarity: accidental primary fires, accidental dwelling fires, deliberate fires, fire-related deaths and serious injuries, fires confined to room of origin, response standards, and injuries sustained to staff through operational activity. So up until this period, we've been reporting against those 7 high-level corporate performance indicators. The proposal moving forward, and to support the implementation of a new set of performance indicators, the service has undertaken significant work, and we've also liaised previously with the Strategic Advisory Group and also the Fire and Rescue Authority committees to gain approval to enable the service to implement a new strategic planning framework alongside the corporate performance indicators. So just for clarity, the proposal that went to authority was we would now have 3 distinct documents, one being the medium-term financial plan, one being the service plan, and one being the community risk management plan, whereas previously that was one document. So falling out of the community risk management plan is the proposed corporate performance indicators that we can continue to monitor and evolve throughout the life of the CRMP. The current service targets are factored around a numerical measure, and this means that there's no tolerance against each of the indicators. The approach leads us to focusing on a specific target as opposed to a direction of travel and future forecasting of performance and trends. And the examples I'd like to bring to your attention there is probably we currently look at accidental primary fires, and our target for 2020-21 has been no more than 433. So it gives us a real window, a small window of a target in terms of 434, we've missed it, 432, we've missed it, but on the positive side as well. Whereas applying a tolerance allows us to deal with that differently. The new performance indicators will provide the ability to monitor performance through the direction of travel and ensure it is in line with the performance target through applying tolerance as opposed to the numerical measure. Following significant work during January and February of this year, the service are now in a position to present these proposed corporate performance indicators to this committee, and we feel the 9 as opposed to the 7 have been agreed to bring to this board. These are all fires, accidental dwelling fires, deliberate fires, fire-related deaths and serious injuries, fires confined to room of origin, injuries sustained to staff through operational activity, response standards monitored against 3 categories of urban, town and fringe and rural, fires in regulated buildings, and diversity, establishment and firefighter competence. And what I'll do, if it's okay, Chair, I'll go through each one in one. I'll cover corporate performance indicator 1, and then I'll pause for any questions, comments, or questions at that stage, if that's okay, Chair.
Yep, that's lovely, Si. Carry on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So the first indicator that we're proposing is corporate performance indicator 1, as it's noted in the report, and that is now taking into account all fires, whereas previously we looked at all primary fires. So we've widened the scope to understand what our demand is in terms of fire-related incidents, not just looking at primary fires. The proposal, and there is there's a graph on page 4 of the report, and the proposal for this performance indicator is to apply a 5% tolerance due to the fact that the indicator is volatile in terms of the variance in year-on-year figures, as you can see within the graph. It's also in line with the variance from 2015 to 2022, because we've done 12 months projection on that graph as well to understand what it might look like over the next year as well. The projections that we've put into the papers as well is based on the last 5 years data. So it is an average of the data. Moving forward, we want to apply a lot smarter way of looking at what that tolerance might look like in terms of trend lines, and we'll be using technology to support us with that moving forward. But for corporate performance indicator 1, Chair, we're suggesting a 5% tolerance on the figures that you'll see in the box. So an upper tolerance would give us a 1,250 incidents, and a lower tolerance would be 1,130 as the tolerance band. Happy to take any questions on CPI 1 before I move through, Chair, if that's acceptable. Okay,
thanks, Si. Any questions for Si on CP1 before we move on to the next one? No, nobody's showing, Si, so carry on.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Thank you. I'll move us through to CPI 2, which looks at accidental dwelling fires, and it's probably worthy of note that this indicator doesn't just indicate where we are having, it's linked to CPI 1 in terms of fires, obviously, but this also helps us direct our prevention activity. So it's not just about the response elements that we can capture within this when we create the narrative through the performance and risk group. The proposal for CPI 2 is to apply a 10% tolerance, as the year-on-year figures demonstrate a downward trend line. The 12-month projection has been calculated taking the average over the 6 years, similar to CPI 1. By applying a 10% tolerance, this will also present a challenge when compared with the variance over the reporting period of the 5 years, plus the projection of 13%. So it is a stretch target, but we feel that we can monitor that effectively, and it gives us a realistic target that, whilst achievable, is also stretching the organisation as well, Chair.
Lovely. Thanks, Si. Any questions on CP2? No, if there's no one, then we'll move on to CP3. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. CP3 is deliberate fires, and again, this directs not just our response to incidents as they occur, this also directs our prevention activity and also the work of our arson crime officer as well. So again, it covers a multitude of areas of the service delivery model. The 12-month projection is based on the average over the reporting period, and therefore shows an increase in incidents when directly compared to subsequent year-on-year figures. It's therefore key to ensure that we regularly monitor this corporate performance indicator to ensure the tolerance remains appropriate. However, this will provide a starting point to enable us to monitor the trend moving forward. The proposal regarding this CPI is to apply a 7% tolerance, as this again will be representative of the variance between 2015 and the projected figure for 2022, which currently sits at 6.3%. Happy to take any questions on CPI 3, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Si. Any questions for Si on number 3? No. Okay, then we'll move on to number 4.
Okay, thank you, Chair. CPI 4 is slightly different when we look at tolerance. Fire-related deaths and serious injuries. If I can just take you back to our previous reporting period, the measure that we had in place was no more than 10 serious fire-related injuries or deaths. The indicators, thankfully, remain low in this area, which is a reflection of performance against other indicators as well. So with the downward trends with accidental primary dwelling fires, etc., this is almost there's a interdependency with that corporate performance indicator there as well. We'll continue to separate fire-related deaths and serious injuries, and the reason we'll do that is to provide a more meaningful analysis and also to prevent a clear picture in terms of severity of any injuries that occur, rather than just, again, a numerical figure. To assist with the monitoring, our proposal is that this will feature within our monthly performance and risk meeting, and will be reported through standards audit and performance along with the other indicators. Our service aim should always be for 0 fire-related deaths and injuries. Therefore, it is impossible to apply a lower tolerance when we're at 0. And so what we'd like to do is, because the numbers are low, rather than applying a tolerance and a numerical figure, we will report any case of serious injury or death as a narrative as part of the performance report moving forward. Happy to take any questions on CPI 4, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Si. Any questions for Si on number 4? No. Okay, all happy. So we'll move on then to 6, Si. Back to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So fires confined to room of origin. This indicator is a more recent indicator, but again, it gives us real intelligence in terms of effectiveness when responding to fires, but it also enables us to understand if our prevention measures are appropriate, i.e. are people following fire safety advice when our prevention teams are working with those, and also our protection activity if that fire happens to be in a commercial building. So it again, it enables us to capture a myriad of areas within service delivery. From analysing the data within the table, it appears that there is volatility within this indicator. However, it's worthy of note from 2015-16 through to the projection within 21-22, there is only 2.32% variance across the whole range. So whilst the graph does look volatile, it's when you look on the left-hand axis, you can see it's the numbers are quite small in terms of percentage gains or losses.
Yeah.
The proposal for the CPI is to apply a 2% tolerance, as this will capture the majority of the variance that we've experienced throughout that monitoring period, apart from 0.32%. Again, we've gone on the 2% rather than the 3% tolerance to ensure it remains a stretch target as opposed to a target that's not going to lead to constant monitoring and effective performance management. Happy to take any questions on CPI 5, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Si. Any questions for Si on number 5? No, so we'll move then on to number 6. Back to you, Si. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. CPI 6, injuries sustained to staff through operational activity. This indicator has continued to reduce since 2016-2017, which is a success in terms of reducing injuries to our people. And we are projected to end this year with 13 recorded public value injuries. Our ambition, similar to our statement regarding fire-related serious injuries and deaths, our ambition is to achieve 0, again, in terms of injuries to staff, and it would therefore not be appropriate to apply a lower tolerance if our ambition is 0. To assist with the monitoring, similar to the fire-related injuries and deaths, we'll report in the normal fashion, and we'll report with a narrative overview of any incidents into standards audit and performance. And that's our proposal for CPI 6, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Si. Eric, I think you've got a question. Over to you.
Yes, it's not so much a question, Chair, it's just an observation. Whilst all these indicators are extremely important, as we accept, I think this particular one is very important, because the safety of our staff through operations certainly is what we're all, I'm sure, keen to make sure we get the lowest, if not down to zero, as near to zero as we can. And it is heading in the right direction from 28 down to 13. So I'd just like to thank everybody that's had an input into that, and let's hope we can keep this up. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Eric. Si, do you want to respond to that?
No, I think I think those sentiments are appreciated, Chair, in terms of we can see a really positive direction of travel towards those zero injuries, and we'll continue with that work. And obviously the constant monitoring will help us for every incident. If we are providing that narrative as part of the investigation and the performance reporting, it'll enable us to close the loop to ensure those accidents don't happen again. So thank you. Those comments are taken on board.
Absolutely. Thank you, Si. Keith Roberts.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Eric's taken some of the questions up I wanted to or comments I wanted to make. I just think that what we have done since 2016 to the present day is really good, and everybody, senior management, everybody concerned, all staff, that they've achieved this. I think it's brilliant. And the bit I like, accepting of injuries to staff. We are a service. As a retired police officer, you never knew what you were going into. And fire services are exactly the same. They don't know the conditions they're going into. And injuries will happen, but look what we've achieved in that short, over those 5 years. Congratulations to everybody. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Keith. Thank you for that. Si, do you want to respond to that at all?
No, again, I think it's thanks, and the sentiments will be passed to our staff in terms of the performance that you've identified within the paper there. So thank you for your comments, Councillor.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions for Si on 6? If there are none, then we'll move on to number 7. So back to you, Si. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So CPI 7 is our response standard, and we're monitoring against 3 categories of urban, town and fringe, and rural. Our previous monitoring of the response standard was against a statement that was the first fire engine will arrive at an emergency incident with at least 4 firefighters within 15 minutes on 89% of occasions. I think it's clear from categorising to 3 distinct categories, so urban, town and fringe, and rural. The proposal is that we, and through consultation as part of our community risk management plan with members of the community, we've reached a position around the response standard. And the urban, we aim to have a fire engine in attendance within 10 minutes, town and fringe within 15 minutes, and in rural areas, first fire engine within 20 minutes. The figures are combined to achieve an 85% of occasions, but the benefit of doing it this way compared to our current methodology is that we're able to split out the 3 distinct areas and identify where we can make those small gains in terms of resource deployment, and also where we may need to not only change our response elements, but also to direct our prevention and protection activity. So the proposal is that we look at the response standard as 3 separate categories. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thanks. So I'll bring Rod in next, then Nigel, and then Eric. So Rod, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. My point was to remind ourselves, one, this is in the IRMP already, so we broadly consulted on this. So this is an accepted strategic direction for us. But that doesn't mean that we're making a decision today whether we treat this as one of our key performance indicators. The second bit is, I think, just for clarity, to remind ourselves that the fundamental change, there's a change in terminology, but there's fundamental changes. We're moving away from an aggregate figure whereby performing particularly well in one area of the county could offset a lack of performance in another area of the county. By doing this, we're looking specifically at 3 different delivery models, so we can identify when any of those is suffering some impact, sort of external influences. And the influences that are getting around the country, some of it's traffic, some of it's increase in potholes and accessibility and all sorts of things like that. So they're the areas we'll be able to look at specifically and identify if something if it affects the rural community, the town community, or our more urban ones. So I think this is a step in the right direction.
Lovely. Thanks, Rod. Nigel next, and then Eric.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thanks for that point that Rob made about the fact that this is always in the IRMP. As been pointed out, this has gone through a period of consultation already with the local communities, both in the RMP and as part of this. But we are raising the issue again within these particular papers, and there was a possibility that it might be picked up along the lines that, you know, the original standard was 15 minutes on 89% of occasions, and now for the rural areas we are changing that to first fire engine in 20 minutes. So in my area, for instance, we've got then a split between the town, say Clun, with the first fire engine 15 minutes, and then the more rural areas 5 minutes after that. So I just think we ought to be aware that this is another opportunity when perhaps members of the public who aren't aware of the consultation that's been ongoing through the IRMP and through this process might pick that up. And if we need something we do need to be aware of, that we need to make clear that this has been through a whole process, etc., and is accepted.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that, Nigel. That's helpful. Rod, I think you wanted to respond to that.
Just very quickly, I think Councillor Harting's absolutely correct. It's been picked up again this morning on the back of these papers, and Simon's been on the radio talking it through. The bit that we need to keep reminding people is that actually the standard response for the urban areas hasn't changed. All this allows us to do is to make sure that there's absolute clarity around how we monitor it, whereas before it was wrapped up into this great amalgam of our overall response performance. So Councillor Hunt's absolutely right. We need to be front and centre on this and be very honest about it. It hasn't changed. It is a 20-minute response standard for rural areas, and now we'll be able to see exactly what our performance in rural areas is really like, and that's important. I think the other bit we committed to is an ongoing dialogue through the RMP with the rural areas. So I think your point is well made again, in that we've already identified that we need to have better communication and better dialogue with our rural areas to let them understand the service they're getting and how important our prevention activity is, bearing in mind that there's some of them will have a 20-minute response standard.
Yeah. Thanks, Rod. Thank you for that. So now we move to Eric. Over to you, Eric.
Well, I would say is coming in third, you always obviously have things to say that's already been said. The comments that have been made by the Chief and by Nigel were things I was going to comment on. I'll just briefly say this is probably the one that's of more interest to the public than anything else, because they're the people who are indirectly or directly affected. And I did hear Simon on the radio briefly this morning touch on this, and I just wonder whether there's any feedback has come back since then from anybody from the public making any comment. The fact that they may see, oh, it's gone from 15 to 20. I mean, we've done this in the right way, and it is correct in my eyes to identify where we've got differences between urban, town, and rural. So we're doing the right thing. So really, that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. Simon or Rod, do you want to respond to any of that in terms of, has there been any further feedback since this morning?
Yeah. I've been in touch with our comms officer. Sorry, Chair. I've been in touch with our comms officer over a different issue just before this meeting, but there was no mention of any further feedback at this time.
Good.
Okay, lovely. Thank you for that. So if there are no further questions or comments on number 7, we'll move on then to number 8. Back to you, Si. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So CPI 8 is fires in regulated buildings, and this is a proposed new indicator. This is one of the additional from the 7 to where we're proposing 9, and this is to provide a high-level overview linked to protection activity within the service. This will ensure due diligence is undertaken when considering fire safety in commercial premises, and there is a significant number of performance indicators that sit below this as a subset that enable us to look at how effective our protection activities are. In terms of the current figures involving fires in regulated buildings, The figures remain low, which in itself is a success. So the proposal, rather than trying to set a tolerance against a low figure, we would propose that we bring back again a narrative with an overview linked to the activity that the protection team take. So probably the example that I'd like to provide a committee with there is around if we have a fire in a commercial or regulated building, the protection team will follow that up to ensure that it is compliant with the regulatory reform fire safety order and take any necessary enforcement action as a result of that. The proposal is that we bring back that detail to members of strategy, audit and performance, purely because the numbers are low and it provides a more accurate reflection of the service's position across response and protection. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Si. Rod.
Sorry, Chair, I will try not to chip in on everything. It's just that there's a couple.
No, that's okay. You're more than welcome. You're more than welcome to.
There's a couple of bits of national context on this one. You'll be aware that protection activity is becoming under increasing scrutiny, both locally and nationally, but particularly it's a big part of the HMI's inspection process. Through the last 2 inspections, we've learned that while we are performing strongly, then we think we can do better. So that's part of this. We were determined that we would have a KPI within our suite that only looked at protection to make sure that protection gets the status in our organisation, the status in our interest that it should do. I think the point of this, and we've been wrestling with what we measure here, because it's difficult to work out precisely what single measure might give you a strategic overview of your performance. We think we've come up with it, but after the first year, we may review this and come back to you and say this isn't giving us quite the results that we wanted it to. At the moment, we think it will. So what we're trying to do is get a better understanding of how our activity affects the outcomes, i.e. the occurrence of fires in commercial premises. And this is very much about, just for clarity, this is about our activities. This is inspection and enforcement. So how is our inspection and enforcement regime reducing the risk of fire in commercial premises?
Thank you for that. Any questions or comments on what you've heard from Si and Rod? Eric, I've got your hand up. Is that from before, or is that you want to come in on this one? So I think you're on mute. Hello, Eric. You're on mute, and I can't. Unfortunately, your picture has disappeared off my screen, so I can't see you either. But yeah,
still on mute, Eric.
Can anybody? Is he having trouble to getting off mute?
I think you're having IT issues. Could you click your mute button on and off again?
No.
Looks like you may have lost signal, Chair.
Yeah, I can't even see I can't see a picture.
Yeah, sorry, Chair. He's still moving. I can see he's well at
he's having trouble with his mute button.
Just soundless.
Well, that's good. And if he's still moving,
he's looking frustrated.
Well, while he's grappling with that, we'll move on, and then I'll obviously bring him back in when he's got his technology available to talk to us. So if there's no more on 8, we'll move on to 9 then, please. Si, back to you.
No problem at all. Thank you, Chair. And again, this is a proposed new indicator to give us our suite of 9. And this is to provide a high-level overview linked to the people element of the service. From our HMI inspections, we were measured against effectiveness, efficiency and people. So again, this enables us to compare some of the data, not just locally, but also it will be comparable with HMI data as well. So we felt it was really valuable to include the people element within our corporate performance indicators. The proposal for reporting against this indicator is to report quarterly to standards audit and performance, the same as the others as well. So it will form that full suite of 9. The rationale for this proposal is due to the fact that the establishment figure is reliant on individuals leaving and joining the service, and therefore there are minor discrepancies when we look at diversity in establishment. So it's really key that we understand what we want to measure and how often we want to measure it in terms of diversity in establishment. The proposal looks at a 12-month reporting mechanism, but we are open to suggestions from committee as to the frequency, whether that's 3 monthly, 6 monthly, or 12 monthly. So that's probably the first question, Chair, in terms of CPI 9. What we'd also like to do with this one, and probably link to some of the committee's points around firefighter injury and what we'll be capturing in Corporate Performance Indicator 6. A real critical element of firefighter safety is firefighter competence. And to ensure this ensures the service are able to deliver a safe, effective and assertive response when attending emergency incidents. It's therefore our aim to ensure all staff are trained appropriately to deliver their core functions and also specialist functions attributed to their work location. So an example would be the boat crew located at Shrewsbury Fire Station. The proposal that a tolerance is not attached to this corporate performance indicator, but attainment of 90% against each skill set would be our aim. The reason I say each skill set is because some of our skill sets aren't attributable to all the workforce. So we break that down through our training documents to understand what 90% meant against each skill set. The reason we've gone for 90% as well, it's inevitable that members of our service, operational service, will be absent from the workplace due to planned and unplanned absences. It's also inevitable that we will have new recruits and new trainees that are not yet competent in those areas that support core functional activity. So the proposal for CPI 9, Chair, is firstly to put the proposal to report firefighter competence on a quarterly basis, and we will be led by the committee in terms of reporting against diversity and establishment. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Si. Just before I take any questions and thoughts on CP9, just to go back to Eric, whether he wanted to make a comment about CP8, because I know obviously he was having difficulty.
Yeah, sorry about that. I think I actually lent on my computer and it switched it off, and it's taken me a little while to get back on it. So my incompetence, I'm afraid, on technology there. So no, I'm perfectly happy with what went on. I could hear what you were saying, even though you couldn't hear or see me. So thank you.
No problem. Thanks, Eric. So going back to 9, based on Si's commentary, obviously the first question around frequency, 12 months is suggested, but does it need to be less than that? The 6 months more appropriate from members? I think if we deal with that first, any thoughts or comments on that? No.
No, it's okay.
Nigel, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm not sure. I mean, 12 months is suggested. I just wondered whether or not it might be helpful, just so that we can demonstrate that we're looking at the issue. Whether we should set that at 6 rather than 12 months, but just throwing that out and that for kind of the members' comments on that.
Lovely, thank you for that. Any other thoughts or comments? Would you be happy with that coming every 6 months as opposed to 12? I'm getting no anyone to the contrary disagreeing with that. So if we can work on the basis of a 6 monthly update, that we see we can see how it goes. If over time 12 months would work better, then obviously we can reflect that. But if we start on a 6 monthly basis at least and see how that one goes. So then, in terms of the other issue that Si raised, any feedback, comments, thoughts on that? No. No. Happy with what's been recommended. Keith.
Yeah.
Keith,
thank you, Chair. Could I just ask a question on item 7, the Fire Alliance with Hereford and Worcester? are the both services working on the same system? In other words, are we both on the same hymn sheet, or have they taken some of it on board and not all of it, or what is it, Simon?
Yeah, thanks, Councillor. So in terms of coming to the position we find ourselves in today around corporate performance indicators, myself and Dan have had regular meetings with our colleagues in Hereford and Worcester to ensure that the measures that we are proposing today are in line with what Hereford and Worcester are proposing as well. So when it comes to comparisons, we can almost measure what we're doing against our colleagues in Hereford and Worcester. Thanks, Councillor.
Thank you for that. That's brilliant. All working together. Good.
Right. Good. Thank you for that. Any other comments or questions? No. Okay. So back to you, Cy. Do you want to just to take us to the conclusions?
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Any other items connected with the report?
Yeah, no, thank you, Chair. I'm more than happy to take you through the conclusions. So I think the proposals across the 9 indicators are, it's the proposed CPIs, and then they've evolved through analysis across a range of data sets, predominantly linked to HMI data harvests and also NFCC and Home Office returns. So again, it's making sure that we can compare ourselves locally, regionally with our colleagues in Hereford and Worcester, and on a national level as well. So we're applying the same methodology there. It's envisaged that the proposals outlined within the paper will evolve and mature over the next 12 months. And I think that goes back to the Chief's point around the protection element and the fires in regulated buildings. We will keep a real close eye on the evolution of these corporate performance indicators over the next 12 months. And there's further work currently underway to determine the viability and the opportunity to incorporate a further 2 corporate performance indicators that will focus on finance and also the environment. And this is planned into the evolution as we build on the indicators that we propose today. Work will continue to also identify any further proposals that would add value to the service and to this to the Fire and Rescue Authority. Thanks, Chair.
Lovely. Thanks for that, Cy. I'll ask if anybody else wants to make any final comments in a moment. But just to say that I know we've spent a bit of time going through that a very important one. On the face of it, might seem quite a dry subject, but actually it's quite an important tool both for the organisation and for us as members. To help us deliver our objectives, see how we're performing, where we might have issues. So I make no apologies for the deliberative way that we've gone through that. Obviously, these are the high-level indicators. There's a lot more information that lies within the performance framework system. So if at any point there were issues that members wanted to particularly look at or interrogate, then there is that opportunity to do so as well. But at least with those 9 plus the 2 that are being worked up as regards finance and the environmental indicator, at least it gives that sort of high level and an overview of where we're at. I think also what will be important going forward is the opportunity to benchmark. Whilst all fire authorities are different to a greater or lesser extent, I think there is still an opportunity and a value in doing that, even if it's just to sort of question ourselves in helping us to continue to deliver continuous improvement. So as I say, it is an important issue, and I'm grateful to Cy and Rod and to members for their comments and questions on this. Are there any other final questions or comments any other member would like to make before we move to the recommendations? Eric, over to you.
Yes, I just wanted to basically agree with what you've just said, Chris. If I might just say from the public's point of view, what is extremely important when we look at our IRMP and also HMIC FRS, they base a lot of their presumptions on our performance indicators and how we are performing as an authority. So it's very, very important, this paper. And I just wanted to just finally comment on what Keith raised as the chair of the Fire Alliance at the moment. You know, I can confirm from a member's aspect that we are working very closely with our Hereford and Worcester partners, and anything that is important, anything that does reflect on our service comes back to all our members here so that they can see what we're actually doing. It's very important, and we're determined to make sure that we make the most of the alliance going forward. So thank you very much for that, Chair.
No. Thanks, Eric. Absolutely right as regards the alliance. That likewise will be an important tool for us to continue to deliver for the people of Shropshire. Okay, so unless there are any other comments, we'll move then to the recommendations. And just before doing so, just for the record, to record that during that item, obviously our colleague Paul Wynne joined us. So welcome to you, Paul. And just to ask again for the record, have you got any interest that you need to declare?
No, I haven't. Sorry about being late. I'm not sure if you got my email or Lynn got my voicemail saying I was in too much.
Yeah, we did. Thank you very much. No problem at all.
No, I'm here. Yeah, thank you.
That's okay. Glad you're able to join us. Yes. Great. Thanks, Paul. Okay, so from the chair, I'll move. Sorry, Keith is proposing the recommendations A and B. I'll second them. So if I now hand over to Lynn to conduct the roll call vote. So over to Lynn. Over to you, Lynn. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Carter.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Hartin.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Lavery.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Mellons seconded. Councillor Pardy's left. Councillor Roberts proposed, and Councillor Wynne.
For.
Thank you. That's agreed, Chair.
Lovely. Thank you for that, Lynn, and members, and thanks again to Si for taking us through that. So I'm pleased really pleased that's now been adopted, and we can look forward to evolving the process and seeing the outcomes from that. So we'll move on then to item 9, which is Service Plan 2021 to 25. I'm sorry, Si, we're working you quite hard today, so back to you for this one.
Absolutely fine, and this one will hopefully be a lot shorter than the performance indicators. So purpose of the report again is to provide the committee and ask the committee note the draft 4-year action plan and agree for the service plan 2021 to 25 to be presented to the Fire Authority at its meeting in June 21. Bit of background to the service plan. There's work currently underway regarding the development of the new service plan. Due to workloads related to the service's recent move into supporting additional COVID-19 activities such as vaccination centres, etc., the service plan is still in its draft format and is still being developed. The intention for the service plan to be the service plan to be the strategic bridging document between the community risk management plan, making Shropshire safer, and the annual and departmental plans. As such, it will be an internally focused document designed to give high-level direction on how the service intends to use its culture to deliver organisational improvement and better outcomes for its communities. The document will be finalised and ready to be presented to Fire Authority at the meeting in June 21, after which time it will be published internally. In the interim, the service remain confident that we're able to maintain the momentum using the 4-year action plan, which is an attachment to this report as an appendix item. The proposed service plan will include the service's vision, purpose, core values and aims, service performance measures that we've just outlined in item 8, the 4-year action plan, which sets out what the service intends to do over the 4-year period, and it is updated annually to reflect emerging themes and their priorities, strategic direction, culture and workplace charter, governance, financial planning, strategic planning through service transformation, and the legal requirements. The purpose of this report today, Chair, is to ask the committee to note the draft and agree that the plan can be taken to Fire Authority for the June meeting. Thank you, Chair.
Lovely. Thank you for that, Si. And members, you'll have heard that obviously this is still a work in progress, but the appendix obviously sets out some headline information for you to consider. So I know this will come to the June meeting, but is there any comment on any of the issues raised at this point in time? Any more information anybody requires? Eric, over to you.
It's not information as such, Chair. It's just the fact that obviously going on this plan, with June being our AGM, there's a lot of change going to be made between now and then. Not least the fact of the PCC review, which is just been announced, and we'll have the elections in May of the new PCC elections, together with the elections for the local authority for Shropshire. And so it will be a changing feast, as we've said before. And it will be something that we'll need to look at and see what other information comes out from government with the white paper, which they've said it would come out after the May elections. Whether that would be before our AGM or after that, we don't know. But certainly there'll be an awful lot to reflect upon and to decide with the new body that we have in place after the 6th of May. We'll then know what our membership will consist of. And I'm sure everybody will be wanting to do the very, very best to ensure that we continue the great work that we've done over the years. And I can assure everybody that I will be continuing to debate with the Home Office about where our position sits, because it's not been definitely decided yet what will happen, and there will be the opportunity for comments to be made nationally as well as locally on any plans that are coming into place. So thought I'd just mention that, Chair.
Yeah. No, that's an important comment, Eric. Thank you for that. Rod, you wanted to come in.
Thanks, Chair. It was just to provide some clarity for everybody that the plan we're talking about now is as Simon said, it's the bridging plan between the strategy which the authority has set and the departments who have to deliver against that strategy. So this is very much an internal operational plan rather than a public-facing plan. It's going to be very, very light in nature, because what I'm going to try not to do is duplicate everything that's been said already in the CRMP. So what comes, there'll be nothing new or controversial in it. It's the plan for me to mobilise the organisation to deliver against the CRMP. So it's bringing those activities that we've set out into line. So although there may be some changes at national level and changes in thought, and maybe we think about governance in a different way over a period of time, this is at operational level, this plan.
Thank you for that clarification. That's helpful as always too. So, any other questions or comments from members? There are two recommendations there. Is somebody able to move them, please? Moved by Eric. From the chair, I'll second. So I'll hand it over to Lynn to conduct a roll call vote. Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you, Chair. So Councillor Carter's proposed. Councillor Hartin.
Apologies. Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Lavery.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Mellings seconded. Councillor Roberts.
For.
Thank you. And Councillor Wynne.
For.
Thank you. That's agreed, Chair.
Lovely. Thank you for that, Lynn. Thank you, members. So we'll now move on then to item 10, which is the People Strategy End of Year report. And I think given the 12 months that we've had, it's entirely appropriate that this report has come to our meeting today. And before I ask Jermaine to go through this, can I again place on record our thanks to all our staff across the organisation for all the work that they've done over the last 12 months. I know public services have had their challenges over a number of years now, but none more so than this. And the way in which the service has responded to the emergency and played its part, both in terms of continuation of the day-to-day job, but also in latterly with regard to the vaccination programme has been exemplary, and I'm sure we're all proud of the work that everybody has done as part of that. So I'm pleased that we've got this report that we can sort of focus on the achievements and look at going forward as well. A lot of good stuff that's in the report, as I'm sure you'll have seen when you've read it. But welcome to Jermaine, and I'll ask Jermaine to take us through the details. So over to you, Jermaine.
Okay, thank you, Chair, and thank you for your comments. So this is the People Strategy End of Year report that outlines the achievements we've made over the year, but also over the duration of the plan. The report also then explains what our new people strategy for 21-2025 is and what our priority areas will be moving forward. Section 3 of the report just refers to the background of the existing document and its key areas of delivery, which you'll all be familiar with already. And Section 4 of the report states how the plan is updated on a 6-monthly basis, the duration of the plan, with an annual update being brought to this forum. So Section 5 outlines under each of the 6 key areas of the plan some of our main achievements have been. I don't intend to go through all of them as the report is quite lengthy, and I assume that you will have already read through it previously, but just to highlight a few of the most recent key initiatives from each area. So if we look at developing leadership capacity, so one of the recent introductions has been the new promotion process, which is the Career Progression Gateway, and that is based around the National Fire Chiefs Council Leadership Framework. And Shropshire were involved in the trialling of the materials before its launch in April 2020. The process is consistent from crew to area manager level, and Shropshire featured as a best practice case study from VCA, that's the provider of CPD, highlighting both the physical and financial savings associated with moving to the new CPG process. So the links within the document there take you to those reports. One of the other areas in this section I wanted to pick up on was the introduction of the Workplace Charter, where we developed a set of statements based on behaviours that reflected how we wanted each other to behave at work. We did check the awareness of our staff through the survey in 2019, and 80% of the respondents said that they had an awareness of the Charter and understand what behaviours are expected of them at work. Excuse me. We've also introduced a new individual performance and development review process, and that's been implemented across the service. There's 2 stages to the process. The first is an action planning objective setting stage, which ensures that employees understand the behaviours required of them at work. And then the second stage of the process is reviewing and summarising the performance over the last 12 months and rating those objectives and behaviours. That also incorporates an element of talent management, which is something that's new for the service. So moving on to organisational development and engagement, we've been undertaking monthly attendance management meetings, and they're in place to monitor staff absence and trends. We've introduced new COVID recording systems that have been implemented to manage COVID absence and testing. And the HR team have also established a standard set of HR metrics to monitor performance, and that's in line with the HMIC FRS requests that we get for information. We've also continued to maintain strong relationships and engage effectively with our trade unions over the collective agreements, over COVID measures, the IRMP, a whole host of employee relations matter, new ways of working, positive action and whole time recruitment. Another area in this section was around the 2019 staff survey, where the service actually achieved a return rate of 64% and an overall engagement score of 89%. And that is actually the highest across the UK fire and rescue service benchmark data. The average is actually 77%. And as a result of that survey, action plans have been communicated with staff, and work has been underway ahead of the next survey, which is coming in April this year, to summarise with staff what actions have been taken as a result of that survey. Under developing skills and capacity of the workforce, we now have a fully functioning service learning management system, which is called LEO, and that's about training course management, course attendance and certifications. And this has seen significant improvements in the end user experience and course attendance levels, and a reduction in the required number of courses. Another area here is there's been 5 options that have been discussed and considered to develop specialist areas of training. These include a regional approach, collaboration across the Alliance, and a provision solely for a Shropshire Fire and Rescue Service. And a recommendation is being taken forward to SMT for a clinical governance model working for the Alliance. Incident command is also being developed within the region, and specialist and water and rope courses are now being delivered to the same standard across the region. In relation to resourcing the service, so during the period from 2016 to 2020, the service has undertaken 2 whole-time recruitment processes and successfully recruited 24 whole-time firefighters. And of those 24 successful candidates, this includes 16% of female and 8% BAME individuals, supporting our ambitions of making our workforce more representative of our communities. And as you know, we're currently in the process of running another whole-time recruitment campaign at the moment. There's also been critical work in relation to positive action, which has been undertaken to engage with key groups from women, LGBTQ and the BAME backgrounds. And we've also successfully created a number of opportunities and identified career pathways for a number of young people through the apprenticeship scheme, Enable and the intern and graduate schemes. In relation to reward and recognition, as you know, we've continued to recognise staff achievements through the celebration of success and medal ceremonies. And we've also introduced an employee benefits package that can be accessed both internally and externally. And by publicising these, we've reinforced our inclusive culture and shown that we are a desirable employer to work for. On the health and wellbeing front, in December we saw the launch of the health and wellbeing site on the portal, and this has involved extensive work around a wide range of health and wellbeing initiatives and national campaigns. We've also rolled out mental health first aid training, and 52 members of staff have been trained in suicide prevention. We've also created a team of mental health first aiders and a team of trained practitioners to destigmatise issues around mental health and supporting staff with their needs. We also continue to support all staff that require counselling, physiotherapy, doctor support when required to ensure early intervention and to prevent sickness absence. This support has been adjusted due to COVID-19, which is now via telephone and video consultation. So, as you can see, there's been a great number of achievements against the people strategy, and this demonstrates the hard work and commitment of HR development, EDI and the training teams, but also, the wider service as a whole. So what are our next steps? You'll see attached as an appendix to the report the new people strategy. There are now 7 priority areas in the new strategy, and they're listed 1 to 7 there. Excuse me. The document offers a response to the significant changes in service provision by reframing what we want from our people over the next 4 years. The plan will allow us to plan and facilitate the evolving demands of the wider workforce, and it will support us in all that we do to attract, recruit, develop, retain, support and reward our employees to meet our future goals and aspirations. So members are asked to note the progress in each of the areas of the plan from our previous plan for 2016 to 2020 and approve the new people strategy for 21 to 25. Happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Lovely. Thanks very much indeed for that, Jermaine. As I said at the start, lots of great stuff in the report, both in terms of what has been achieved in the last 12 months and obviously with the strategy over the next few years as well. Dan Quinn has just reminded us that I mentioned at the start about the vaccination programme, but we're anticipating that the service will deliver its 10,000th vaccination tomorrow, which is no mean feat at all. So I think that just reinforces the versatility and commitment of our staff, and it was interesting to see in the strategy there is a photograph with that looks very much like Dan Quinn with his with his needle in the bottle. So I don't know if that is Dan or not, but
it is, yes. Yeah.
He'll be known as Dr. Quinn next.
Well, don't say that. That takes me back to my childhood.
Yeah. But joking aside, no, some great stuff. So thank you for taking us through that. So questions and comments from members. Eric, sorry, did you want to go? I've got your hand up. Sorry.
Yes, I thought it was right and proper. Over the last couple of days, together with James Lavery here, we've been attending an LGA leadership course, funnily enough. And this morning, we were talking about with HMIC FRS and picking up on the COVID situation. And I made comments and James made comments about the tremendous efforts, and then irrespective of just what you've been talking about by the number of vaccinations, it's the way our firefighters have responded to all the various problems that they've been faced that they never had to face previously, helping the ambulance service, manning the vaccination centres as well as taking part physically. They've been just tremendous, and our on-call firefighters have done a tremendous amount of work as well. And also we touched on this morning the fact of our diversity. In fact, this afternoon, if I hadn't been present here with James, we would have been talking about equality and diversity, and comments were made about areas like ourselves where we don't have the massive numbers of a diverse community like some cities do across the country. But that doesn't mean to say that we don't take this seriously, and we do work as hard as possible when we have our programs for taking on firefighters, that we do try to expand that as much as possible and look at the various opportunities for people to join us. So tremendous achievements. And when you look at the percentage of on the staff survey, shows how people that we employ want to be engaged with the service and do get engaged. And we've got the highest in the country, as has just been pointed out by Jermaine. So it makes, I'm sure Chris agrees with me as Vice Chair, it makes you very, very proud to represent a body like this, where we can go before any observation, we can go before any department, before any programme like HMIC FRS, and say we are one of the finest fire and rescue services in the country, if not the finest. And it's tremendous to see the amount of work our officers and our staff, our firefighters and our members, all working together, produce this sort of report. Thank you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you very much indeed for that, Eric. I think it's also important to highlight the section on health and well-being and the work that's been done around mental health, which of course for many organisations is an increasing issue, and you'll see set out there what's taken place to address that, and I guess that's going to continue to be an important issue going forward. Yeah. So it's good to see that recognised and being acted upon. So before I come to the recommendations, any other questions or comments from members? No, if there are none, can I ask for someone to propose? Nigel propose. From the chair, I'll second. So I'll now pass over to Lynn to conduct a roll call vote. Over to you, Lynn. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So, sorry, bear with me a second. Right, Councillor Carter.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Hartin propose. Councillor Lavery.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Mellon seconded. Okay, Councillor Roberts.
4.
Thank you. And Councillor Wynne.
4.
Thank you. That's agreed, Chair.
Lovely. Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, members. And again, thanks, Jermaine, for that. Real pleasing report to read. So well done, everybody involved. So we'll then move on then to item 11, which is the gender pay gap report. And this is the first of a number of papers that Natalie will be taking us through. So welcome to the committee this afternoon, Natalie. Over to you to take us through.
Thank you, Chair. Today I'm given the first report on the gender pay gap. So this report explains the service's legal obligations under the Equality Act to publish our annual gender pay gap figures. And the committee is asked to note the contents of the 2021 report for 2020 data. The gender pay gap is an equality measure that shows a difference in average earnings between men and women, and used to its full potential can be a valuable tool for assessing the levels of equality in the workplace and how effectively talent is being managed, amongst other things. The UK average gender pay gap for all employees, as determined by the Office of National Statistics, is current for 2020 is 15.5%. And that is a reduction from 2019 of 17.3%. So it's useful to note that for when we're looking at our gender pay gap. The areas that we're required to report on, and it is a snapshot in time as of the 31st of March 2020, is the mean gender pay gap, the median, the mean bonus, the median bonus, and bonus proportions. As the service does not offer a bonus scheme, we don't report on the bonus figures. So we'll go now to section number 4 under service data. So the service must report and publish these figures based on individual employee contracts of employment, and they will include all contracts held, such as they will be whole time, on call, and any secondary or dual roles within the service. It's worthy of note that the proportion of female employees in 2020 has increased by 17.8% in 2020, and a reduction of male employees of 82.2%. So we've had an increase from 99 in 2019 to 116 female employees. The service mean, which is the average gender pay gap for 2020, is 8%. As you will see, in 2019, it was 6%, and I'll go on to clarify the reasons why we think we've had this increase in the gap. Our median pay gap has gone from 0 in 2019 to 2% in 2020. So again, very small increases in the gap for the service. We also have got detailed on page number 3, the mean average hourly rate. And again, we will see some changes from 2019 to 2020. So again, some slight increases there between male and female average hourly rate of pay. We believe that the service believes that the gender pay gap does not arise from paying men and women differently for the same work, but the gap exists as a result of the job roles in which they work and the salary that these roles may attract, especially with the support staff departments. So within the service, there are essentially more males occupying the higher level positions within the service, and obviously the rates of men in those roles as a whole is well documented. So the more males in the service in those particular positions, you would expect to have that pay gap there. I'll just go further down on page 3. I'm just going to highlight certain points out, and then you can ask me those questions at the end. So as detailed before, that the national average gender pay gap is 15.5%, which is significantly higher than that reported in the service. So the above tables for 2020 show that the female employees on average earn 8% less than males in the service, which is an increase of 2% in the gap from previous years. Data from 2020 indicates that male employees are on average earning £1.16 more per hour from females in the service. Again, this is a slight increase from last year. So this is likely to be attributed to the increase in females recruited into the lower salary quartile bands in 2020. So if you'll note earlier that we've had an increase in the number of female employees in the service as a whole, when we are looking at the data in the salary pay bands, we can identify there that we've had quite an increase in number of women into those particular areas. So the data shows 39% of our employees in the lower quartile bands are female, which is an increase of 10%. from 2019. So it's a significant contributing factor to the increasing gap. This does obviously indicate a positive in the fact that we've recruited more females into the service, which is a positive overall. The current data shows a positive increase also of 2% in the higher salary band of female employees to 14%, and in the mid-upper range of a 1% increase from 2019. So overall, even though the gender pay gap has increased, if we look individually at the salary quartile bands and the numbers of employees in those specific areas, you'll see there's actually been an increase in all of those areas of women in those salary quartile bands. So I will now move on to, you have got some details on page 4 of the salary quartile bands, and it details the percentages of each in those areas. And going on to page 5, it details in each of those salary quartile bands a year on year the difference between. So if we look at the quartile bands for 2019 and 2020, you'll see that women in the high salary have gone from 12% to 14%. So we do have an increase there, and a reduction obviously in the male quartile. So the above salary quartile band tables indicate that in 2020, 86% of our male employees were the highest earners in the service. This is a reduction of 2% from 2019. So this is reflected in the overall numbers of our employees in the service. So the 2020 lower quartile figures indicate that this is our largest female percentage area of 36%. This predominantly equates to our support staff employees. It's recognised that females are underrepresented in uniform roles, and Shropshire Fire and Rescue Service are addressing this in all its recruitment processes and in its 2021 on-call targeted recruitment campaigns. So we're using this information to make sure that we are addressing any imbalances that we identify. The service is committed to ensuring and achieving an inclusive workforce to encourage our female representative at all levels of the service, and as such are doing positive action programmes where identified and supporting our employees with various initiatives in the service. Going on to section 6 on page 6, some of the initiatives that support reducing the gender pay gap are trainings such as unconscious bias training, firefighter taster days as mentioned previously, showing the role models within the service, such as on International Women's Day, promoting our on-call stations and our female firefighters on our social media platforms. We also had menopause training last year, and for the first time a Voices representatives group was launched, and we have various different champions within that, which I'll detail later. We also encourage our female employees to attend training and development opportunities, such as using the National Women in the Fire Service Conference, and as mentioned previously by Jermaine, encouraged to undertake the Mental Health First Aid Aware training and Mental Health First Aiders. The Service Career Progression Gateway assessment process has now successfully been embedded as part of the promotion process. The online access and reduction in attendance time has encouraged more participants to undertake the process. Ongoing work initiatives within the service are our on-call recruitment initiatives and strategies for increasing the number of female firefighters into the service, and using appropriate role models and images on our social media. There's also an on-call sustainability review taking place at the moment, which will look at aspects such as pay and terms and conditions, including flexibility of hours, which may also have a positive impact on recruitment. The service has also introduced a buddy system as part of our on-call process to help employees with the traction and retention, so they can allocate and choose an appropriate buddy if they wish to. Moving on to page 8. We also use the National On-Call Recruitment Campaign, which has got role models there that we can use, as well as our own employees as well to the service. The Voices Group had its inaugural meeting in January 2021, and it was we were very pleased to have a very wide range of representatives come forward after our recruitment campaign in 2020 for that. So the service has now got representatives for women, disability, Black, Asian and minority ethnic employees, and lesbian, gay, bisexual and transgender. So we're pleased that now these representatives are now working on initiatives to move things forward in the service, to be a voice for other employees and create actions and initiatives for us to implement. So to summarise, for 2020, the national gender pay gap sits at 15.5%, and having completed this analysis for 2020, there is a slight increased gap on previous years. However, the service has also seen an increase in representation of females in the higher pay bands in the service, and overall the female numbers have increased in the service as a whole, and we will continue to address any issues and look at our recruitment and attraction initiatives as we go throughout the service. So thank you. Any questions?
Lovely. Thanks very much indeed for that, Natalie. And again, a lot of the report demonstrates a lot of good work that's taking place within the service. I know the headline figure doesn't suggest that, but when you drill beneath that, you can see what's happening, which is really positive. So thank you for that. So in terms of speakers, Nigel is the first. So over to you, Nigel.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. As you say, it's a tremendous report, and well done to everybody involved. There's some fantastic work that's obviously going on here. And as you say, that the initial headline figure is a little bit disappointing, perhaps, but as you say, within this report, there's a heck of a lot going on. And I see the recommendations that we're being asked to note and to publish on the services website and indeed the government website. But I mean, there's such an awful lot of good work going on here. I wonder if there's any way that we can actually publicise this in a far greater way than just putting it on the website and putting it on the government website. Well, what more can we do to get across the amount of work that we're doing here, and to encourage people to be aware of it in ways perhaps that they weren't before?
Thanks for that, Nigel. I think that's a good suggestion. I wonder if there's a way of involving our comms team in perhaps rolling something out to support that. But Natalie, over to you. I'll give you the opportunity to respond to that.
Yeah, we will be able to publish our gender pay gap report on our website as well. So that's another area that we can promote the work that we do on there. But I agree that I think social media is a good way to use our communications to increase the knowledge in this area and the work that we do. So we can certainly look at that. But this report will go on our website, and it can also link to our social media platforms.
Could I come back just here on that one?
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Nigel,
great.
do you want to come back? Yes, by all means. Yeah, by all means. Yeah, sure.
Thank you, Natalie. That's good. And certainly, Facebook and so on are useful. I mean, a lot of people now have, a considerable number of contacts within Facebook, and the more people that share within it, the better. But I'm also wondering if there are any other sort of service magazines we can put them in as well to make it clear the sort of work that that's going on here in Shropshire that may attract people to come into the area and want to work for an inclusive fire service like Shropshire.
Thanks, Nigel. Natalie?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something we can certainly explore, seeing where we could promote ourselves nationally, but also I think locally with some of our community groups where people will know about us already, but perhaps don't understand the work that we're doing on a daily basis. So I think nationally and local groups would be appropriate.
Okay, thank you. Eric, I've got Eric next.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just going on from what Nigel said, I agree 100% with what he's been saying, and perhaps even we could consider a press release on this particular type of item, rather than just social media. Put something out in the press, because there's certainly nationally a drive towards much fairer representation of BAME people, and also the gender pay gap issue is very, very strong. And as I said earlier, there's a meeting taking place this afternoon on equality and diversity, which I'm not able to attend, but it's certainly something which we're all aware of and we need to address, and we are addressing. And you can see by the figures that we're going in the right direction. So whatever we can do to highlight the work that we're undertaking and how we've got these timetables for the future and the aims and aspirations as a service to attract people, particularly females, into the higher echelons of the service. And let's be honest, we've recently taken on one lady in a high position locally to our service, and we're very proud of that. And one's been just appointed very high position in Gloucestershire. So it is happening in the Midlands area as well as nationally, and so it's something I think we should be proud of. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Eric. Rod.
Thank you, Chair. It's just to give you some confidence. Actually, to some extent, it's a little disappointing that we're not more effective at it, but we do take every opportunity to raise this issue. Simon was on the radio this morning talking about diversity. Every time we put we've got such a good relationship with the Shropshire Star now that every time we put a report together like this, then it gets prominence within the local press. We do put it on Facebook. The issue, we also connect largely, and Natalie's quite influential on the national scene through EDI, and so we do share good practice. The truth of it is, we're not alone though. Every fire service is working this hard. So while it feels very special to us, then every fire service is working this hard. And frustratingly, some fire services are getting greater success. They're not doing much different to us, but they've been a lot more successful at it. And I can use the likes of Lancashire recently, who are proud to boast that they've got over 20% of their latest entrants are female. So as much as for us to say things, we've also got to look around the country and work out what everybody else is doing and why they're doing similar things but getting more success than we are. So it's a frustration. We're very small. We have a very low turnover. The area we can really focus on is in our retained recruitment. And that's when we get more success in retaining recruitment. That's when I think I'll be more confident with going out nationally and saying, look, we've got this bit cracked. Sorry, I should say on call. I'm very old now.
Thank you for that.
Technology.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry, I've got a slight time delay on my. I interrupted you there. Sorry, I had a slight time delay on my link this afternoon, so apologies for that. It was a thank you at the wrong point, but yes. That's well made. It's always useful to sort of draw on other people's experience and see if there is anything that we can learn. And Shropshire is different to anywhere else in the country, such as well. So we're not everywhere is not the same in that sense, but always useful to sort of draw on other experiences. Okay. So any other questions or comments, and then we'll move to the recommendation. No, if there are none, obviously we're asked to note the contents of the report, and it can then be published on the services website and obviously the government's website as well. And we'll look to sort of some comms work using the various channels to publicise the work we are doing that may help us with what we're trying to achieve here too. So from the chair, I'm more than happy to propose it. If somebody is willing to second. Nigel is seconded. Thank you very much. So that is approved unless anybody wishes to indicate otherwise. Nobody is indicating, so that recommendation is agreed. Thank you very much, and thanks again, Natalie. So, but don't go too far away. So item 12 is equality monitoring statistics, and this is another paper from Natalie, so back to you to take us through this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to provide an overview of the service's equality monitoring statistics and how we use that data, and the committee is asked to note the content of this report. It's a requirement of the Equality Act 2010 and the Public Sector Equality Duty that Shropshire Fire and Rescue Service publish equality statistics. The equality statistics that we will produce are broken down by age, disability, ethnicity, religion or belief, sex and sexual orientation. In some areas, the service may choose not to report in some areas due to data protection and gender pay GDPR. Since the last report, the Equality Monitoring Form has been updated in the service and agreed with the Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Steering Group, and now includes a question on gender identity. The service may choose not to report on all data fields for reasons detailed above. So we may find in the future that once the new form is fully working in place, that the categories of reporting may change. The statistics are used to analyse the composition of our workforce in order to identify protected characteristics that are underrepresented by comparison with the makeup of the communities we serve. This enables us to plan for positive action and other appropriate initiatives to address imbalances within the service. The statistics are also reported to the Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Steering Group, which reviews any recommendations made by myself, and these may include initiatives such as positive action events to address the balance, reviews of recruitment processes to ensure accessibility, encouraging employees to participate in equality monitoring, and updating any information and processes as required. Members will note that in comparison with the wider community profile, Shropshire, Telford and Wrekin, there are low numbers of employees from Black, Asian and minority ethnic communities and of lesbian, gay and bisexual people, and that women are disproportionately underrepresented in the operational workforce. So we've got some figures here for BAM people in Shropshire, Telford and Wrekin, which make up around 7%. In the service, they make up 1.91% of the workforce, which accounts to 11 people. This is a slight increase from 1.84% last year. It's generally accepted estimates for the percentage of LGB people in the general population is 7 to 10%. And as you can see with our statistics at present, we have 0.69%. This accounts for around 4 people. This was a slight decrease from last year. It was also a point to note that 3.65% of employees selected prefer not to say when responding to this question. The service continues to encourage staff to accurately report their personal details and inform them of their use of their data and the importance of this during their equality, diversity and inclusion induction. This is also an area that we are undertaking some work on to encourage our employees to make sure that they complete their monitoring data when they join the service. And part of this may also interact with the Voices group that we mentioned previously, the work that they will be undertaking. So all the EDI statistics have been provided for you in the appendix. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer those.
Lovely. Thanks very much indeed, Natalie. Members, any questions or comments on the paper? Any of the information contained in the report?
No.
If there are none, if somebody would like